Once again, I took the plane from Kagoshima Airport to Tokunoshima Airport. Here you can see Tokunoshima Airport approaching, and you can see the sugarcane field on the island. A family on the same plane, husband, wife, and children from this island. The children's grandfather and grandmother were picking them up at the airport. I came to Tokunoshima in 2010 when I traveled around Japan for 300 days. This is my second visit to Tokunoshima. This time, I stayed for 6 days and 5 nights. I wanted to relax on the island. One of the purposes I came here that time was I wanted to visit and stay at an inn. The guest house is a private inn managed by Mr. and Mrs. Takeda. When I came in 2010, I learned about Kochanchi guest house from Mr. Maruno, who was working at the Tokunoshima Information Center. At that time, Mr. Takeda was a company employee and his wife was a school teacher. Mr. and Mrs. Takeda did very well to take care of me in such a busy period. At that time, the couple said they would open a guest house in a few years. 7 years have passed since my first trip to the island. Mr. and Mrs. Takeda have retired since then. When I first arrived, I told them I would return. It's been 7 years, but I'm happy to have fulfilled my promise. It's morning. I could hear the sound sa-sa outside. When I opened the curtain, the husband was sweeping the garden with a spear. The husband cleans the garden every day, except during typhoons. This large garden was made by leveling sugarcane fields. They offer the use of this large garden for free to the people in the area, and to people holding concerts and various other events. The wife prepared a healthy breakfast. This is Mr. and Mrs. Takeda, owners of Kochanchi Guest House. On this day, the local women's grand golf tournament was held. The husband has a bee farm, and the honey it produces is offered to the local people for personal use and to make souvenir snacks for the tourists. The wife gave me the honey at breakfast in the morning. It had the fragrance of tropical flowers and tasted great. The husband came home in the evening after catching fish. They were big fish. We had it for dinner, and it was very delicious. It was wonderfully sunny during the entire 6-day holiday. On the 5th day, that morning, the husband took me on a boat to see the island from the sea. The weather was nice, and the sea was tranquil. The name of the ship is Arisa. It's their daughter's name. The husband started trolling for fish. After a while, he stopped the ship. He put his bait in the water. With a little luck, he caught a really big bonito. The skipper immediately drained the bonito blood and puts the fish in the cooler box. We went back to the inn and had lunch in the garden. Of course, we had bonito sashimi, which was prepared by the husband. I love sashimi, and bonito sashimi is my favorite food. I enjoyed this lunch very much. On the last night, the wife talked to many people and held a farewell party for me. A Japanese band playing traditional musical instruments also came and performed for us. The wife's dad and mom also came. The father is 87 years old, and I was invited to come to his 100th birthday party in 13 years. A lively banquet started with the participation of local people and the band. In the middle of the feast, the wife's father played the shamisen and sang an old folk song of the island. It's the last morning of my trip. This is the morning to say goodbye to Kochanchi Inn. While staying here, I heard many episodes with many people who have stayed here and the couples at the inn. All these stories were heartwarming and touching, with episodes that show people's connections. There were a lot of moving stories that brought us to tears. Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Takeda. I'll be back again in a few years. When I return, please tell me about the connections you make with guests who stay at your inn. Island to make a story. Island Tokunoshima. An inn that makes stories. Kochanchi.